Why healthy people still have high blood pressure, doctor explains. Let me begin by sharing a fundamental truth I convey to my patients week after week. A high blood pressure reading does not automatically signify that you are inherently doing something wrong or failing in your efforts to maintain your health. In fact, some of the most perplexed and disheartened individuals I encounter in my practice are those who diligently follow every piece of advice they've been given. They consistently prioritize a nutritious diet, engage in regular physical activity, abstain from smoking, consume alcohol responsibly, and have even conscientiously reduced their salt intake. Yet, despite their unwavering commitment to these healthy habits, their blood pressure persistently remains elevated. This isn't just an isolated spike during a moment of stress, it's a consistent, concerning pattern. It's at this juncture that people often start to feel a deep sense of discouragement because they were initially given a very straightforward promise: do all the right things, and your numbers will naturally come down. When that expected outcome doesn't materialize, they are left grappling with unsettling questions, wondering, what crucial piece of the puzzle am I missing? Is there something fundamentally broken within my body, or is this merely an inevitable consequence of aging? Here's the most profoundly important message I want to impart to you right now, a crucial understanding for anyone facing this challenge. These patients are not fabricating their efforts, they are not being careless with their health, nor are they simply failing at adopting lifestyle changes. On the contrary, they are genuinely and consistently doing the right things, dedicating themselves to their well-being. The core issue lies not in their habits alone, but in a deeper physiological mechanism. Blood pressure is not solely controlled by external choices. It is intricately governed by powerful internal signals operating within the body, and when these specific internal signals remain perpetually activated for extended periods, your body simply doesn't cooperate as expected, irrespective of how healthy and disciplined your lifestyle might appear on paper. This fundamental insight is precisely the central theme of today's discussion, because once you gain a clear comprehension of which particular internal signal is persistently driving this phenomenon, suddenly everything else surrounding your blood pressure challenges begins to make profound sense. For far too long, the prevailing wisdom regarding blood pressure control taught most people a very simplistic model. High blood pressure unequivocally equates to consuming too much salt. Consequently, it was a natural and instinctive response for individuals to aggressively cut back on sodium from their diets. And while it's absolutely true that salt does play a role in blood pressure regulation and certainly matters, what I consistently observe in clinical practice presents a more nuanced picture. Some individuals drastically reduce their sodium intake and experience significant positive improvements in their blood pressure readings. However, for others, even after making equally rigorous cuts to their sodium consumption, they see almost no perceptible change in their numbers. Why does this stark difference exist? It's because for a substantial number of adults, particularly those over the age of 60, high blood pressure is often not primarily a salt problem at its root. Instead, it is, in many cases, fundamentally a hormonal problem. The key hormone in question, which often goes unrecognized in this context, is insulin. Now, most people typically associate insulin exclusively with diabetes, understanding its role in blood sugar regulation. However, insulin exerts a truly enormous and often underestimated influence on blood pressure control. Every time insulin levels in your body rise, particularly after consuming food, it dispatches three very important and coordinated messages to various systems. Firstly, it signals to your kidneys to hold on to sodium, instructing them to retain it rather than excrete it. Secondly, it subtly activates your nervous system, preventing it from fully resting and maintaining a slightly heightened state. And thirdly, it communicates with your blood vessels, instructing them not to fully relax and dilate as they otherwise might. This entire process is completely normal and indeed essential on a temporary basis. Insulin is specifically designed to surge after a meal, perform its vital functions, and then gradually fall back down to its baseline levels. The critical problem arises, however, when insulin never truly gets the opportunity to descend and return to that healthy baseline. Let's carefully consider a very common yet often well-intentioned daily eating pattern that inadvertently contributes to this problem. A typical day might involve having breakfast, followed by a mid-morning snack, then lunch, an afternoon snack, dinner, and perhaps even an evening snack before bed. Individuals might also incorporate healthy options like a smoothie or a protein shake somewhere within this schedule. It's important to note that none of the individual foods they consume are necessarily bad or unhealthy choices. In fact, many are excellent, nutrient-rich selections. However, what truly matters from a physiological perspective is the frequency of these eating events. Each instance of eating, even a small snack, triggers a release of insulin. When meals and snacks are spaced too closely together throughout the day, insulin never gets the chance to return to its low baseline. Instead of exhibiting its natural rise and fall rhythm, it remains constantly elevated, lingering at higher levels. This persistent elevation creates a subtle but pervasive physiological state that I observe repeatedly in my patients. It's not outright diabetes, nor is it necessarily accompanied by overt obesity, and it often doesn't immediately jump out as abnormal on standard lab tests. Yet, it is a state where insulin is just high enough and for just long enough to silently but effectively create and perpetuate chronic blood pressure problems. Within this intricate relationship between insulin and blood pressure, your kidneys emerge as a truly central player, becoming the real focal point of the problem. Your kidneys, fascinatingly, are not concerned with whether your food was organic, locally sourced, or meticulously prepared at home. Their primary function is to respond to powerful hormonal signals, and insulin happens to be one of the strongest and most authoritative signals they diligently listen to. When insulin levels remain consistently elevated, your kidneys interpret that constant signal as an unequivocal command to retain sodium. This isn't just a temporary instruction, it's an ongoing directive that persists not sometimes, not briefly, but effectively all day long. Consequently, even if you are diligently eating a very low-salt diet, even if you meticulously avoid ultra-processed foods that are typically laden with sodium, your kidneys are still actively holding on to sodium within your body. This happens because the crucial counter signal, the one that would instruct them to release excess sodium, simply never arrives or is consistently overridden by the persistent insulin elevation. To better visualize this complex process, imagine your bloodstream as a busy highway. In this analogy, sodium represents the number of cars traveling on that road, and your kidneys function as the exit ramps, designed to allow cars to leave the highway and regulate traffic flow. Insulin, in this scenario, acts as the traffic signal or control system that governs the opening and closing of those exits. Now, cutting out salt from your diet is akin to putting fewer cars onto the highway in the first place. This definitely helps a little by reducing the overall volume of traffic. However, if the exit ramps remain perpetually closed or severely restricted, traffic will inevitably still back up and cause congestion, even with a reduced number of cars attempting to pass through. Chronic insulin elevation, unfortunately, keeps those vital exit ramps partially or fully shut down. So even with fewer cars, less sodium entering the system, congestion, high blood pressure, continues to build because the removal mechanism is impaired. This precisely explains why individuals can aggressively cut salt from their diet and yet still struggle with stubbornly high blood pressure. The fundamental problem isn't solely about how many cars are entering the highway. It's critically about the fact that the crucial exit ramps aren't consistently open and functioning effectively. This deeper understanding of insulin's role also elegantly explains another common pattern that many individuals observe. Their blood pressure tends to be highest, or at least significantly elevated, in the morning. Often, the immediate assumption for this morning surge is stress, but the primary reason frequently relates to timing. Specifically, late-night eating, even if the food consumed is healthy and nutritious, can keep those insulin levels elevated throughout the entire night. As a result, while you are asleep, your kidneys are busily retaining sodium, your nervous system remains slightly activated instead of achieving full relaxation, and your blood vessels don't fully recover and dilate as they should. Consequently, you wake up already starting the day at a disadvantage, with elevated blood pressure. Most people have absolutely no idea that this intricate hormonal interplay is the underlying cause of their morning hypertension. Now, this phenomenon becomes even more fascinating and perplexing because some of the people most profoundly affected by this chronic insulin elevation appear outwardly very healthy. They are not overweight, they are regularly active, and they generally look physically fit. This brings us to a crucial concept, the hidden metabolic trap that often goes undiscussed in conventional health dialogues. And that is, having a normal body weight does not automatically equate to being metabolically healthy. In fact, this often overlooked discrepancy is one of the most underappreciated reasons why seemingly skinnier individuals can still persistently struggle with high blood pressure. In the human body, there are two primary types of fat. Subcutaneous fat is the visible fat located just beneath the skin. Visceral fat, on the other hand, is the more problematic type. It's fat that's intricately packed around your internal organs, particularly concentrated around the liver. It is this visceral fat that is the real culprit. Unlike subcutaneous fat, visceral fat is metabolically active. It actively interferes with insulin signaling throughout the body and significantly drives chronic insulin elevation. And here's the absolutely crucial point. It is entirely possible to maintain a normal body weight and yet still harbor an excessive amount of visceral fat. When this condition exists, your pancreas is forced to work much harder, secreting increased amounts of insulin just to keep your blood sugar levels within the normal range. So, even though your standard lab results for blood sugar might look perfectly fine, your insulin levels are perpetually elevated throughout the day, subtly but significantly impacting your health. And that, unequivocally, brings us right back to the persistent problem of high blood pressure. When insulin levels remain chronically elevated, your kidneys remain locked in sodium retention mode, your nervous system never fully calms down and relaxes, and your blood vessels gradually lose their inherent ability to properly dilate and relax. This insidious combination consistently nudges your blood pressure upwards, maintaining it at elevated levels throughout the entire day. This, precisely, is the reason why so many patients feel such profound confusion and frustration. They are diligently doing everything right on the surface, but their internal metabolic environment is silently and powerfully working against their efforts. I want to state this plainly and unequivocally to ensure this critical point truly resonates. The single, most common, yet often overlooked mistake that keeps blood pressure chronically elevated in otherwise health-conscious individuals is constant feeding. This isn't necessarily about overeating massive quantities of food, nor is it solely about consuming unhealthy junk food, and it certainly isn't a mere lack of personal discipline. Rather, it's the consistent pattern of never allowing your insulin levels sufficient time to fall back to their healthy, low baseline. This pattern manifests in a few very common ways that many people unwittingly adopt. Pattern number one is grazing all day long. This involves consuming small meals or frequent snacks, often eating something every 2 to 3 hours. This eating approach was, at one point, even marketed as beneficial for metabolism. However, from a physiological standpoint, it simply keeps insulin continuously activated throughout the entire day. Your body never gets the chance to truly enter a low insulin state, which is crucial for metabolic health. Pattern number two involves liquid calories. These include popular items like smoothies, protein shakes, and juices. Even seemingly healthy drinks, when consumed in liquid form, are absorbed very quickly and consequently spike insulin rapidly, keeping it elevated for longer periods. And because liquid calories generally don't create a strong feeling of fullness, people often consume them in addition to their regular meals, which only exacerbates the problem of chronic insulin elevation. Pattern number three is late night eating. This particular habit is one of the most significant and often unrecognized drivers of stubborn, persistent high blood pressure. Consuming food close to bedtime effectively keeps insulin levels elevated throughout the entire night. This means that while you're supposedly resting, your kidneys are actively retaining sodium, your nervous system never fully downshifts into a deep state of calm, and your blood vessels miss their crucial recovery and relaxation window. Over time, this consistent pattern fundamentally resets your blood pressure baseline to a higher level, meaning you literally wake up each morning already starting from behind in your quest for healthy blood pressure. Now, take a moment to notice the crucial commonality shared by all of these patterns. It's not primarily about what specific foods you're eating, although food quality is always important, but rather how often you are consuming them. The most effective and fundamental solution to all of these issues is to simply give your body adequate periods of time to reset its hormonal signals. This does not imply extreme or restrictive dieting. You don't necessarily need to adopt a ketogenic diet, nor do you require multi-day fasting protocols. And you certainly don't need absolute perfection in your eating habits. What you truly need are consistent, insulin-low windows. This means deliberately creating extended stretches of time where insulin can genuinely fall back to its natural, healthy baseline. Simple and practical examples include making a conscious effort to stop snacking between your main meals, finishing your dinner earlier in the evening, intentionally skipping any late-night food, and aiming to compress your entire eating window into a more consolidated 10 to 12-hour period each day. When insulin levels are allowed to fall, a wonderful cascade of beneficial physiological events automatically unfolds. Your kidneys finally release the excess sodium they've been retaining, your blood volume normalizes, your nervous system calms down and achieves a state of greater relaxation, and your blood vessels regain their full ability to relax and dilate appropriately. This harmonious chain reaction often results in blood pressure starting to come down significantly within a matter of days to weeks, offering a tangible and encouraging outcome. Ultimately, all of these insights are profoundly important because chronically high blood pressure is itself a critical signal. It reflects a state of chronic mechanical stress being exerted on your most vital organs, your heart, your kidneys, your brain, and your intricate network of blood vessels. When you effectively address and fix the underlying issue of a chronic high insulin state, you're not merely lowering your blood pressure, you are simultaneously improving your overall health outcomes across a wide spectrum of physiological functions. This empowers you to live a longer, healthier, and more vibrant life, enjoying excellent well-being well into your 60s, 70s, and even your 80s. If you found this video informative and helpful, please consider subscribing to this channel, as your support genuinely helps us to disseminate this vital message to the individuals who need to hear it the most. Finally, now that you have a comprehensive understanding of why blood pressure can remain chronically elevated and how to begin fixing this critical internal signal, you'll undoubtedly want to take concrete steps towards lowering it naturally and permanently. The absolute best way to do that is to explore our dedicated video discussing the top 3 exercises specifically designed for lowering blood pressure naturally. You can find and check out that video right here. Porque la gente sana aún tiene presión arterial alta, explicación de un médico. Permítanme comenzar compartiendo una verdad fundamental que les comunico a mis pacientes semana tras semana. Una lectura de presión arterial alta no significa automáticamente que estén haciendo algo mal o que estén fallando en sus esfuerzos por mantener su salud. De hecho, algunas de las personas más perplejas y desanimadas que encuentro en mi práctica son aquellas que siguen diligentemente cada consejo que se les ha dado, constantemente priorizan una dieta nutritiva, realizan actividad física regularmente, se abstienen de fumar, consumen alcohol de manera responsable e incluso han reducido conscientemente su consumo de sal. Sin embargo, a pesar de su inquebrantable compromiso con estos hábitos hábitos saludables, su presión arterial persiste elevada. No se trata solo de un pico aislado durante un momento de estrés, es un patrón constante y preocupante. Es en este punto donde las personas a menudo comienzan a sentir una profunda sensación de desánimo, porque inicialmente se les hizo una promesa muy sencilla: haz todo lo correcto y tus números bajarán naturalmente. Cuando ese resultado esperado no se materializa, se quedan lidiando con preguntas inquietantes, preguntándose: ¿qué pieza crucial del rompecabezas me falta? ¿Hay algo fundamentalmente roto en mi cuerpo? ¿O es esto simplemente una consecuencia inevitable del envejecimiento? Aquí está el mensaje más profundamente importante que quiero transmitirles ahora mismo, una comprensión crucial para cualquiera que enfrente este desafío. Estos pacientes no están inventando sus esfuerzos, no están siendo descuidados con su salud, ni simplemente están fracasando en la adopción de cambios en el estilo de vida. Por el contrario, están haciendo las cosas correctas de manera genuina y consistente, dedicándose a su bienestar. El problema central no reside solo en sus hábitos, se encuentra en un mecanismo fisiológico más profundo. La presión arterial no está controlada únicamente por elecciones externas, está intrínsecamente gobernada por potentes señales internas que operan dentro del cuerpo. Y cuando estas señales internas específicas permanecen perpetuamente activadas durante periodos prolongados, su cuerpo simplemente no coopera como se espera, independientemente de cuán saludable y disciplinado pueda parecer su estilo de vida sobre el papel. Esta percepción fundamental es precisamente el tema central de la discusión de hoy, porque una vez que comprendan claramente qué señal interna particular está impulsando persistentemente este fenómeno, de repente todo lo demás relacionado con sus desafíos de presión arterial comenzará a tener un sentido profundo. Durante demasiado tiempo, la sabiduría predominante con respecto al control de la presión arterial enseñó a la mayoría de las personas un modelo muy simplista. La presión arterial alta equivale inequívocamente a consumir demasiada sal. En consecuencia, fue una respuesta natural e instintiva para las personas reducir agresivamente el sodio de sus dietas. Y si bien es absolutamente cierto que la sal juega un papel en la regulación de la presión arterial y ciertamente importa, lo que observo consistentemente en la práctica clínica presenta una imagen más matizada. Algunas personas reducen drásticamente su consumo de sodio y experimentan mejoras significativas y positivas en sus lecturas de presión arterial. Sin embargo, para otras, incluso después de hacer recortes igualmente rigurosos en su consumo de sodio, no ven casi ningún cambio perceptible en sus números. ¿Por qué existe esta marcada diferencia? Es porque para un número sustancial de adultos, particularmente aquellos mayores de 60 años, la presión arterial alta a menudo no es principalmente un problema de sal en su raíz. En cambio, en muchos casos es fundamentalmente un problema hormonal. La hormona clave en cuestión, que a menudo pasa desapercibida en este contexto, es la insulina. Ahora, la mayoría de las personas asocian típicamente la insulina exclusivamente con la diabetes, entendiendo su papel en la regulación del azúcar en la sangre. Sin embargo, la insulina ejerce una influencia verdaderamente enorme y a menudo subestimada en el control de la presión arterial. Cada vez que los niveles de insulina en su cuerpo aumentan, particularmente después de consumir alimentos, envía tres mensajes muy importantes y coordinados a varios sistemas. En primer lugar, le indica a sus riñones que retengan sodio, instruyéndolos a conservarlo en lugar de excretarlo. En segundo lugar, activa sutilmente su sistema nervioso, impidiéndole descansar completamente y manteniéndolo en un estado ligeramente elevado. Y en tercer lugar, se comunica con sus vasos sanguíneos, instruyéndolos a no relajarse y dilatarse por completo como lo harían de otra manera. Todo este proceso es completamente normal y, de hecho, esencial de forma temporal. La insulina está diseñada específicamente para aumentar después de una comida, realizar sus funciones vitales y luego disminuir gradualmente hasta sus niveles basales. El problema crítico surge, sin embargo, cuando la insulina nunca tiene realmente la oportunidad de descender y volver a ese nivel basal saludable. Consideremos cuidadosamente un patrón de alimentación diario muy común, aunque a menudo bien intencionado, que contribuye inadvertidamente a este problema. Un día típico podría implicar desayunar, seguido de un refrigerio a media mañana, luego el almuerzo, un refrigerio por la tarde, la cena y quizás incluso un refrigerio nocturno antes de acostarse. Las personas también pueden incorporar opciones saludables como un batido o un batido de proteínas en algún momento de este horario. Es importante